So, Amy, we've been talking about productivity, and I'm really interested to know, do you find clients ask you about productivity, and what kind of questions are they asking you about?
Yes, actually, David. So productivity and efficiencies have been under the spotlight throughout the past year. It goes without saying. And I think many business owners have just been forced to adapt and to reconsider, just to ensure that their productivity levels are maintained. There are obviously many factors for business owners to consider in order for them to assess and measure productivity levels and try and improve upon them. But there are a couple which I feel from a legal perspective that I've been able to add a bit of value on, and so I've been discussing those with clients in a wee bit more detail recently. So that's people and property. So I'll kind of explain a little bit more detail in terms of the discussions I've been having around people. So obviously people, key asset to any business. And I think based on the conversations I've been having, it's clear that there have been two trends or two types of concerns. So one is around, if I kind of badge it as culture. So obviously, based in the office previously or based on site, catapulted into being based at home, and it really just meant that employers and business owners had to trust their employees. And I think from the conversations that I've been having with clients recently, there are concerns that their employees don't feel as connected or perhaps don't feel as aligned to their place of work by dint of the fact that they're not there anymore, working there on site on a day-to-day basis, and they're working in a vacuum. So I think that then in turn leads to a concern around our workforce is now more transient. And I suppose my response to clients on the back of those concerns is just, well, okay, what will then inspire your employees to feel connected? What would make them more connected, and what would then in turn lead to higher productivity levels? Because that naturally, if they are feeling more connected, they will be more productive. And that in turn then led on to discussions around blended working, buzzwords at the moment, or buzzwords, I should say, where there's a kind of combination of working on site and working at home. And I think based on the discussions that I've been having with clients, the key thing is, well, firstly, does that work for your business? Does it work for your customers? And if it does, then okay, start thinking about it. I mean, one thing I've been suggesting to clients is, if you have the data there to assess it, assess whether employees have been more productive at home. I think it will surprise some business owners to see that employees are actually more productive at home. So quite a few of my clients are now going off to talk to staff, ask their opinion on what they would prefer. Is it the case that they would feel they want the flexibility there? And if so, I suppose that then in turn leads to this real relationship of a two-way trust relationship that, employer and employee have got to just trust one another. And I think it also leads to discussions around, well, what does it look like for your business? Are you going to suggest to your employees that they need to work from home on certain days and be in the office certain days, perhaps for a safety point of view, because they want to ensure that we don't have too many members of staff in premises at the one time. And then I suppose that leads on as well to the hours that employees work. Are they now going to be flexible going forward? Are they going to be set? Is it all just based on customer demand? So much to talk about, and lots to consider. And I think any changes that are made or introduced by business owners in respect of those points all need to be captured within contracts of employment, and the company policies obviously need to be updated to reflect working home and working from home, or changing hours, etc. So that's something that we are helping lots of clients with at the moment. So that's kind of discussions around culture, but I've also been having a separate discussion with clients around skill set, and it's something that I found really interesting. So I've been asking clients to assess their team, because the team that led the business pre-pandemic time may not necessarily be the team to lead the business out of the pandemic. I mean, different skill sets are required now. So, management teams or leadership teams will benefit from or the employees certainly that work for these teams will benefit from their managers having soft skills like communication skills. They now need to be excellent. They need to be very approachable people. The whole open door policy is now virtual. So I've been asking clients to assess whether their current board of directors or current leaders and managers have the necessary soft skills to lead a team remotely. If not, is it time to refresh these teams? Is it time to make some additions to them? And obviously, on the back of that, you then need to give some thought to if it's the board that you're changing. What do the articles look like? We need to just make sure that they're still fit for purpose. So again, lots to say on assessing teams. And skill sets there. One other thing, just before I move on to property, just to flag, is that there are other ways of incentivising employees, etc., in order to increase and drive productivity levels. But one thing that I found interesting is that there are links to an increase in productivity with employee ownership and share ownership. So that's something that I will be discussing in a bit more detail when we, in the context of succession planning. And I'll discuss that separately. But that's just kind of food for thought. We park that just now. So that's the kind of people discussion I've been having. I've also been talking to clients around property. I mean, lots have been discussed around that. It's just, I suppose, what's safe? Is it safe to have your staff in the office? Is it not safe to have them on site? And then this question again: what works for the business? What works for your customers? I suppose that will all depend on this blended working outcome, whether you want staff in or not. And I think one thing particularly on productivity here is tools and equipment. If you are keeping your staff at home, do they have the right tools and equipment there? I mean, in terms of equipment, do you have the right software in place or functionality to allow you as a business owner to really assess the data? It might not necessarily be because you don't trust your employee, but it might just be that you want to assess whether or not this working from home or blended working is actually the right fit for your business. It will just help monitor. So that's something to bear in mind. But in any event, having a kit at home is something that obviously needs to be factored into contracts of employment or policies, just making sure that employees are looking after your kit whilst at home. And that will obviously help drive productivity. But I think, moving back onto premises, I suppose, what's it going to look like? Is it going to be a hot desk environment so you can space people out more? Are you going to have the software in place to for people to book in, that sort of thing? And I think, time will tell what's going to happen here. I mean, people are wanting out of leases, particularly people that have leases of large buildings and lots of floor space. We are helping clients with that at the moment, but it depends on the terms of the lease. And it also, there's been a lot of chat recently around Scotland's city centres. Are they going to have to reinvent themselves? Lots to say on all of that. But I suppose there are lots of discussions going on at the moment with clients around productivity. That is really just scratching the surface, to be honest.
Nevertheless, scratching the surface, Amy, it's amazing to hear the number of issues that are being discussed. There's no question about it that it's certainly turned so many issues on its head and brought so many things that have been talked about in the past right up into the forefront, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, that was really, really interesting.
About the senior management team and the changes that are potentially having to be made there when it comes to approaching the changes in the requests from the workforce and how they work and attitudes towards that. That's a very interesting point and something that we will maybe see when we're dealing with clients when it comes to recruitment and retention of staff.
Absolutely, it's something to look out for, and it's something that business owners might not have automatically thought to assess at this time, but you do have to step back and think, do we have the right team of people in place here for this? Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Right, Amy, thank you very much indeed. That was really very informative. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Jim.